Imagine not enjoying learning and not also being curious. It kind of sounds cheesy, but always learn. And the cool thing is, learning doesn't have to be correlated with school. You learn at school, but that's not the only way to learn. I hated school, but I love learning. They're completely different things for me. Unfortunately, it took me a long time to figure out, oh, I just don't like to be forced to learn something. I like learning because I just like to learn certain things. Like diving down a rabbit hole at 3 a.m. about some obscure World War II battle, sign me up. Dream team for world conquest. Dude that has potato computer, but set graphic ultra. Dude that always leave when start losing. Leroy Jenkins. Then there's the guy that was last online 4 years ago. That's Spain. He never comes to the battles. I guess I'd rather have that though than a teammate switching sides. Don't be the Italy player. An Italian guy just oofed the leader of an exploitative corporation. What year is it? I don't remember it being January 1912. Yes, anarchy in pre-World War I Italy. Guess this has been an Italian pastime for a lot longer than I expected. Dudes be like, don't say Chinese culture because China has many culture. My brother in Christ. Every large country has many cultures. I mean, even some of the smaller countries have a lot of cultures too. Look at this comment about the tiny mountain nation of Bhutan. Even they also have a whole lot going on. I don't know who honestly could have predicted that one. Yeah, maybe the only exception would be the Vatican City. Arab dictators in the 1980s? Wow, there's so many of them. Meanwhile, Arab dictators now. And you know what? This actually is no longer a true meme. Let's update that. There we go. That's much better. Syria's leader, or Assad, was the last holdout. He officially gone now, though. Hey, Germany, can I have free trade to create a coal and steel community? Yeah! Actually creates the largest and most significant supernatural democratic entity in human history like a boss. It's European Union time! The origins of the EU date back to the Cold War days, back when Germany was actually just West Germany. That meme's not completely annexed, I guess, but maybe that's showing us the future. My heart bleeds at times when I think about what France and Germany could have achieved if we had collaborated earlier instead of slaughtering each other's sons. We got auto-balanced to different teams. Together, you probably would have been able to take out the Brits. America be like, France surrenders every time. A French army is weak. The French are cowards. Meanwhile, the Germans, British, and Spanish, all my greatest military achievements were won against the mighty French army. They took the dub, but it wasn't easy. Good point. Maybe this is the reason why the USA doesn't ever build up the French. Because we've never been at war with the French. We've never got a dub over them. Typically, when you win over another person, you want to say they were extremely good to build yourself up at the same time. We did have a de facto war against France, like 20 years after our independence, but it did go undeclared. And the key word in this meme is army, not navy. The Americans have it easy, bordering nations that can't do poop. Try living next to murderous maniacs like every country in Europe does. Us four are truly like the Fellowship of the Ring. We even have the Hobbits or Benny Lux. America and Britain during World War II. Hi, says America. Send dudes. You mean nudes? Responds the USA. I'm in a fight. I need more men. Weird text to send at 3 a.m. Churchill, but I get it. He was out here fighting all this by himself. About to go fight. I'll post the video after, says Italy. I got my ab beat, bruh. I'm not posting that shit. Ethiopia definitely was a rude awakening for the Italians. That was definitely a grudge of theirs for a while. My favorite part was when Ethiopia won the battle, they didn't even follow through. They just went home and waited for the Italians to make peace. As soon as word got back to Italy, their government fell, and then every other government in Europe formally established relations with Ethiopia. I like how Italy literally lost one war against an African power and said, we're going fascist. The Chinese United Front in pop culture, we must work together to fend off the Japanese imperialists. I'm not happy, but I agree. Versus the Chinese United Front in reality. Shoot the Japanese! Stop shooting my men! The communists are out to get me. Shoot the Japanese or else I'll find someone who will. We're talking World War II when China had to halt their first civil war to unite against the Japanese Empire. Remember, China was a complete mess in the early 1930s. There was just so much chaos going on. But they put aside their differences to unite and defeat the Japanese during World War II, or at least that's how a lot of the stories go. In reality, the Chinese still weren't really that united. And the fact that the Civil War just re-continued after the Japanese left mainland Asia just proves my point. They literally just went back to fighting each other as soon as Japan had been nuked. If I recall correctly, at multiple times, Allied resources would be stored away not to be used against the Japanese, but against the looming civil war that was to come. Rumor was the leader of nationalist China broke up the communist units and integrated them into the nationalist army, thinking it would lower communist influence. Yeah, that definitely backfired then. The Chinese United Front wasn't very united. Please please honor me or else I'll flood slightly less than usual. Oh, that's just the Nile River. Meanwhile, the Yellow River be like, frick you. Shifts course 800 kilometers, oofs millions, and topples your dynasty. When it comes to massive rivers and civilizations depending on it, yeah, I'll take the Nile 10 out of 10 times. I mean, there's a reason why so many Chinese kingdoms fell apart in history. Meanwhile, the Nile for Egypt was pretty chill. There's also the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, which were so chaotic they made the Mesopotamians and their whole religion nihilists. I love that China uses bomber planes to stop the Yellow River from flooding. Yeah, so you're not gonna have a fun time when the river, which is the basis to your civilization, floods this amount of times. Like, how many Wikipedia articles can you make about these events? Some Romaboo, Rome was literally the pinnacle of human civilization. Meanwhile, the poop stick, literally the most important invention they ever did. I don't think they could have been a fraction of as great as they actually were without this. This is probably part of the reason why we today are so lost. We don't have the communal poop stick experience to bond over. It was considered the most advanced civilization of its time. Problem is, they set the bar extremely low. The amazing original, the pretty good sequel, the bad third film they retconned, the ambitious reboot, the latest film, that strange fan fiction, the controversial expanded universe, and finally, the shared universe. Man, I just love being a part of the French fandom, right? Not all the stories are bangers, but it's interesting to read about. The lore goes deep. OP, I'm disappointed. The franchise was right there. Vichy France is the series after it fell under new management and sucked. Meanwhile, Quebec be like, we're not a spin-off, we're the next generation. Meanwhile, every English monarch after the year 1340, you know, I'm something of a king of France myself. They was always trying to get that Franco-British Union going. They didn't let go of the title until 1802, which also coincides with the French Revolution. They saw what was going on in that country and the British were like, you know what, on second thought, German soldiers in World War I seeing a bear carrying artillery shells for the Allies. This is how they first knew they were the baddies. Mother Nature's on the other side. Poland takes this bear extremely seriously. He actually helped a whole lot with the war efforts. I still need to go visit this statue one day in real life. It is a bucket list thing. Ew, the virgin fantasy archer. Completely helpless at close range. No braces or gloves to protect its wrist from arrow abrasion. Walks around with bow strung all the time, weakening elasticity. Has no impact on society. Fantasy world stuck in medieval status for thousands of years. Loots caves and dungeons. Always visibly weaker than melee fighters despite bows requiring raw upper body strength. Back quiver requires reaching up and behind between shots. Them versus the Chad English bowman. Only strings his bow before combat to preserve his bow strings. Social impact of armed, whatever that is, bedrock, Anglo-American traditions. Accelerated the end of feudalism and the creation of nation states. Swole AF, capable of generating 600 newtons of force, just as capable in melee as at range. Most effective fighting force in Europe since the Roman legions. This is literally why these long bowmen are oftentimes used as, like, you know, like in civilization games is like England's favorite unique unit. I also did a lot of looting, by the way, too. Long bowmen, just so much better than the fantasy archers. In fact, reality might just destroy any fantasy elements of these. In real life, historically, archers were just so powerful. Look at the Mongols. When they say they're into history, when they start listing off German tanks. Oh no, this is just a World of Tanks or War Thunder player. We are not the same. I like tanks, don't get me wrong, but there's so much deeper stuff in history than just the military vehicles. I guess you gotta start somewhere though. Oh, spirits of the great Soviet leadership. Our ally in Syria is in trouble. What do we do? Oh, he's using a Ouija board to contact him. Here they are, all showing up. Another easy one. We spent decades to create another huge weapon stock for another world war. Just give them a few hundred tanks and our vehicles from those storages. So you're gonna give them, like 70-year-old tanks. Yes, that's a fantastic idea. Sir Stalin, we're losing Syria and the weapon stores in Russia are near depletion. General, easy solution. Use the weapons stored in Poland and Ukraine. They have many weapons, yes. But sir, there's a nuance. Yeah, the Soviet leaders wouldn't realize that they lost all that territory. Modern Russia doesn't have Ukraine or Poland anymore. They don't have a whole lot, actually. Assad just fell victim to the Russian tactical genius of retreating and waiting for the Russian winter. Yeah, that doesn't work in a desert. Japan, when someone declares war on them, and it is Poland. Hold up. Yeah, time out. We're just not gonna accept that. Japan in World War II literally just said, no, we're not going to war with Poland. They didn't even exist at the time. The Polish government in exile reluctantly declared war on Japan, but the Japanese simply rejected the declaration, stating that the Poles were fighting for their freedom under British pressure. It's pretty interesting because Japan and the Poles actually had a pretty close relationship before World War II. Japan in 1904 to Poland, I would like to award you the highest honor I can bestow, Samurai Nation. Yeah! They were both perfect geopolitical allies to counteract the Soviets. Japan didn't expect it was going to be the Germans in Europe that would be their allies against Stalin. They wanted it to be Poland after all. But yeah, it all kind of comes down to just enemy of my enemy, of course. And here are my patrons.
I finally escaped from Drew's basement.
Lucas, the Canadian
Lover.
Christmas
Drew's
trees, Honk,
Argentinian
NordTyrol, NordTyrol.
I'm back,
DOOCHBAGGINS. Imperial Japan
Kirino
flag is the
is
same as
best
modern
girl.
Japan.
Koyle.
Please stop making this mistake. It's
Amateur
Archaeology.
aPhatNarwhal.
Carmel
Connor
Pavlik.
Pavlik.
DaBeautiful-MEGAN-Underwood.
Fredrik Tibblin.
InquisitorXarius.
KingBearHaze.
Tambre.
Mexican
ZaneyBoi.